In a small, dusty village nestled between rolling hills, life was a constant struggle. The sun beat down mercilessly on the earth, leaving the crops wilted and the rivers low. For the villagers, each day was a battle against hunger and despair. Among them lived a mother named Amara, who had 3 children, Amina, Zuri, and little Kofi. Amara was once a vibrant woman, filled with dreams and hopes for her children. But after her husband's death, everything changed. With no income and no land to farm, she watched helplessly as her children grew thinner with each passing day. Amina, the eldest at 10, often helped her younger siblings by foraging for wild fruits, while Zuri, just 7, clung to her mother's skirt, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Little Kofi, barely 4, was unaware of the gravity of their situation, often giggling and playing in the dust. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the village, Amara sat outside her modest hut, her heart heavy with worry. She had received news that the village elder was organizing a meeting to discuss the worsening conditions. Whispers of families being forced to sell their children to survive had reached her ears. The thought made her stomach churn, but she also knew that desperation could lead to unimaginable choices. That night, Amara could hardly sleep. Images of her children filled her mind. Amina's laughter, Zuri's innocent smile, and Kofi's tiny hands gripping hers. She recalled her mother's words, "A mother's love knows no bounds, but sometimes survival demands sacrifices that break the heart." As dawn broke, Amara knew she had to make a choice. With a heavy heart, she decided to attend the meeting. As she walked through the village, she saw the faces of her neighbors, hollowed by despair, yet united in their suffering. They gathered under the old baobab tree, where the elder spoke of the harsh realities they faced. "Many families are losing everything. Some have sold their children for food," he warned, his voice solemn. Amara listened, tears brimming in her eyes. The elder's words echoed in her mind, and her heart ached at the thought of parting with her children. She thought of their future. Would they be better off, or would they suffer even more? As she stood in the crowd, a sense of desperation enveloped her, and she felt the weight of her decision growing heavier. The elder concluded the meeting with a call to action. "We must find a way to survive, even if it means making painful choices. We cannot allow our children to starve." Amara's heart raced as she absorbed his words. The very thought of selling her children felt like a betrayal, but with each passing day, survival became a more pressing concern. When she returned home, Amara found her children huddled together, whispering and giggling. The innocence of their laughter cut through her heart like a knife. She couldn't bear the thought of them suffering, yet the reality of their situation loomed larger than life. Amara lay awake that night, staring at the stars that dotted the sky. Each twinkling light seemed to represent a hope, a dream, and a memory. In that moment, she made a promise to herself. If it came to it, she would do whatever it took to keep her children alive, even if it meant making the most painful sacrifice of all. As the days turned into weeks, the situation in the village continued to deteriorate. The once bustling market was now eerily quiet, with stalls abandoned and food scarce. Amara's children grew weaker, their laughter replaced by coughing fits and silent tears. Every time Amara looked at them, her heart broke a little more. One fateful morning, desperation led her to the outskirts of the village, where she met an old man named Juma. He was known for his wealth and connections to distant towns. Rumors had spread that he was looking to help families in dire need, but at a cost. As she approached him, Amara's heart raced with fear and hope. "Please, Juma," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I need food for my children. I will do anything." Juma's eyes softened as he studied her. "Anything, you say?" "There are ways to help, but they come with sacrifices," he replied, his tone grave. "I can provide food and resources, but you must consider selling one of your children. It's the only way I can help you." Amara felt her world tilt on its axis. The thought of selling one of her children was unbearable, yet the hunger in their eyes haunted her. She returned home, her heart heavy with turmoil. That night she lay awake, listening to her children breathe softly beside her. Each rise and fall of their chests reminded her of the stakes involved. Days passed, and her internal struggle deepened. The village elders organized another meeting, urging families to come together to discuss the growing crisis. As she sat among her neighbors, she noticed their despair reflected in their faces. The elders' words echoed in her mind, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her choice would have consequences far beyond her understanding. "Some families are selling their children to survive," the elder announced, his voice trembling with emotion. "It is a last resort, but we must take care of our own." Amara's heart raced. She glanced at Amina, Zuri, and Kofi, who were playing in the dirt, blissfully unaware of the gravity of their situation. How could she make such a decision? But how could she watch them suffer? The dilemma consumed her. That evening, Amara gathered her children close, her heart heavy with unspoken words. She wanted to protect them from the harsh realities of their world. Yet she felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. "My darlings," she began, her voice shaking, "I love you more than anything in this world. But things are getting harder, and I need you to understand. We must do what it takes to survive." Amina looked up, her eyes wide with innocence. "Mama, we will be okay. We always find food together." Zuri nodded, her small hands gripping Amara's arm. "Yes, Mama, we can keep looking." Amara's heart shattered at their optimism. How could she shatter their dreams? But as hunger gnawed at their bellies, she knew she had to make a decision. The next day, she returned to Juma, her mind made up. "I will do it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I will sell one of my children." Juma's eyes widened with surprise and perhaps a hint of respect. "Which one?" he asked, his tone serious. The question felt like a knife piercing through her heart. As she stood there, tears streaming down her face, she realized that she was not just selling a child, she was selling a part of her soul. The weight of her decision felt unbearable, and the reality of her choice began to sink in. "Take care of them," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please, I only want them to survive." Juma nodded, and in that moment, Amara knew she was on the brink of an unimaginable sacrifice. With her heart heavy and her mind racing, she returned home. Her children were waiting for her, eyes sparkling with trust and love. How could she break their hearts? The decision she had made would change their lives forever, and as she tucked them into bed that night, she whispered a prayer for strength and forgiveness, knowing she had chosen survival over her deepest maternal instincts. The following day dawned heavy with uncertainty. Amara's heart raced as she prepared for the hardest decision of her life. She had told Juma she would sell one of her children, but the reality of that choice loomed larger than she had imagined. As she watched her children play in the morning sun, their laughter echoed through the air, each giggle piercing her heart like a dagger. Amina, always the protector, was gathering wild fruits for breakfast, while Zuri and Kofi chased butterflies in the courtyard. The sight was bittersweet. It reminded Amara of the innocence she was about to shatter. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the dire circumstances. If she didn't act, they would all suffer. As the sun rose higher, Amara found herself standing at the edge of the village where the road led to Juma's house. Each step felt like a step toward a dark fate. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she nearly turned back several times, but desperation propelled her forward. When she reached Juma's home, the reality of her choice struck her like a cold wave. Juma greeted her with a nod, his expression unreadable. "You're here to finalize our agreement?" he asked, his voice steady. "Yes," Amara replied, her voice barely a whisper. "But I need to understand what will happen to my child." Juma regarded her carefully. "The child will be taken to a distant town, where they will have food and shelter. You'll receive enough to provide for your other children for a long time." His words hung in the air, a cruel reminder of the price she was paying. Amara's heart raced as she tried to hold back tears. "Which child will I have to give?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The choice is yours," Juma said, "but choose wisely. The bond between a mother and her child is not easily broken." With those words, Amara felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had to decide between Amina, who was becoming a young woman full of dreams, Zuri, who still needed her nurturing touch, or little Kofi, whose innocence had just begun to blossom. Each child represented a piece of her heart, and the thought of losing one was unbearable. After what felt like an eternity, Amara made her choice. "I will sell Zuri," she said, her voice breaking. The moment the words left her lips, a part of her shattered. Zuri, her sweet, innocent girl, would be the one to go. Tears streamed down her face as she returned home, dreading the moment she would have to explain everything to her. How could she break Zuri's heart? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their home, Amara gathered her children close. "My loves," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "There's something we need to talk about." Zuri looked up at her, eyes wide and trusting. "Are we going to have a feast, Mama?" she asked innocently. Amara's heart ached. "No, my sweet, I need to tell you something important." She explained the situation, the struggle for survival, and the difficult choice she had made. Zuri listened intently, confusion slowly turning into understanding. "But Mama, I don't want to leave you," Zuri cried, her small hands gripping Amara's tightly. "I know, my angel," Amara whispered, tears flowing freely now. "But this is to help you and your siblings survive. You will be safe, and one day, I will come for you." Amina stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger and sadness. "You can't do this, Mama. We will find a way. Please, don't sell Zuri." But Amara shook her head, knowing deep down that she had made the only choice left for them. That night, as Amara tucked Zuri into bed for the last time, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She held her daughter close, whispering words of love and promises that she would always be with her, no matter where life took her. Zuri fell asleep, unaware of the storm that raged in her mother's heart. The next day came too soon. Amara walked with Zuri to Juma's house, each step feeling like a farewell to a piece of her soul. When they arrived, Juma stood waiting, his expression neutral. Amara felt her heart breaking with every moment that passed. "Zuri, my love," she said, kneeling to look into her daughter's eyes. "You are brave, and I love you more than words can say. You will always be in my heart." Zuri nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you too, Mama," she said, her voice small and trembling. And with that, Amara made the hardest choice of her life, one that would haunt her forever. As Zuri left with Juma, Amara felt an emptiness that words could not describe. She had sacrificed one child to save the others, and now she faced a future filled with uncertainty and heartache. But deep down, she clung to the hope that her sacrifice would lead to a better life for her remaining children, even if it came at an unimaginable cost.